Let's go to Michael in Macon, not Bacon, Georgia. What's up, Michael?
Dr. John, thank you for taking my call this afternoon. Listen, here's my question. I'm a pastor.
I was about to say, dude, are you a pastor? You have a pastor voice. How did you get that?
I have no idea. So listen, I grew up, my dad was in radio, was in broadcast journalism, so maybe I was supposed to be on the radio and I wound up preaching, but who knows?
Dude, you sound way better at this than I am. That's incredible, man. All right, so sorry, I was about to interrupt you and say,
pinch hit, let me know.
Are you a pastor, man? For real? That's incredible, your
Yes.
voice. All right, so what's up?
So I pastor here in Middle Georgia, a little town called Perry, and I'm working on my preaching plan for next year, and I'm working on a series of messages to address problematic emotions from a biblical perspective, like from the gospel. And so my question for you is, what are what you would say best resources for research and for sermon prep, might even have some good application to make the scriptural applications for my people?
Not a lot of people ask me for insights to their sermons, Michael.
Well, I'm not your average bear, Dr. John.
That's a level of trust people don't usually throw my way.
Well, I read your book, Redefining Anxiety.
Okay.
I listen to your show regularly,
okay.
And I usually listen to you at 1.5 speed. So you do sound good at 1.5 speed.
Yes.
But as I read through the book, obviously it starts with the proverb right at the very beginning, and then you define the problem very clearly, and then bring the application in really well. And so I thought, that kind of resource is helpful for a layperson such as myself, who's not necessarily, obviously I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or well delved in that. So how do I help bring those two worlds together? And that's where that practical application is needed. It's helpful.
Yeah, it's so good. What a great question. So what I've noticed over the last 15 or 20 years, I'll just leave it at 15, 20 years, is a temptation by pastors to both a temptation and this weird expectation to become experts in everything and to have an opinion or to speak on everything as though they are at ground zero with those particular things. And now we've got pastors who are speaking on all sorts of issues. You know what I'm talking about? This is clearly not you, but it's your colleagues for sure, not you. And so I think a great place to start when it comes to a discussion on emotions, a discussion on, what do you say, you want to talk about emotions, biblical emotions?
Yeah, so I'm really calling them problematic emotions, so things like anxiety, anger, grief, along that line. So the reality of pastoral ministry is that these are the conversations, and so I do pastoral counseling.
Yeah.
I have a seminary and a post-seminary degree in training and this kind of thing.
Yep.
And so these are the conversations that I have. So from like a ministry standpoint, a lot of it is really what we're talking about is biblical discipleship, helping people to understand their situation and see it through the lens of the gospel, right? And then some people need they need more help. They need to spend time with a trained counselor in that area and that kind of thing. So I'm not trying to be more than I can be.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But I know that people are sitting in the seats, and these are the things that are happening behind the closed doors at home. These are the things that they have yet to be willing to drag out in the light.
Okay.
Yeah, so it kind of drives a lot from the pastoral side of the ministry.
Yes.
So pastoring and preaching come together and meet there. So that's where it's really being driven from.
Gotcha. So number one, I want to just applaud you for leading your church through how can I help my people live more peaceful lives? How can I teach them to be better parents and better spouses and better neighbors? And that starts with dealing with handling these emotions, right? Where are these things coming from? What are they about? What I've found over the last year working here at Ramsey is letting somebody know, hey, the reason you're so raged out is because your brain's trying to take care of you, not because of this thing on politics you think is happening. It's because this thing over here is poking on you. It's
Right.
giving people, right? Or one of my favorite theological quotes of all time is from Rich Mullins, which is, we often over spiritualize Jesus. And I think there's an incredible sermon series that can be done on the human, the guy who had his heart broken, the guy who was exhausted, the guy who was laying on his face saying, the guy who had doubt, Dad, can we do it another way? I don't want to do it like this.
Yeah.
The guy who then got up and went anyway, right? So when it comes to emotions, the thing that I want people to always know is we live in a world, and I'm trying to do a third way here. You may have heard me say that. We live in a world that's either forget your feelings, forget your emotions, get over it, just quit being angry, suck it up. Or the other swath of our culture is all about your feelings are everything. What do you feel? And if you don't feel loved or happy or good, then you do you and YOLO and all that, right?
Right.
The third way is, and I think it's modeled biblically, is no, you got to feel that stuff and then go do. And so what I always want to, I like to start with experts, man, and not always academic experts. But I love talking to somebody who might be a marriage counselor. Would love my church to hear those kind of people. I love getting Genesis lessons from a biologist. It's awesome. It's a complete reframe, right? So if I'm you, I would look at a couple of core emotions. Chip Dodd's got some stuff out there. Henry Cloud and Townsend with Boundaries has some stuff that there are some problems that we can address, and by addressing those problems, we end up getting into the feelings and the emotions part. Then we end up getting in the, how does that apply to me? Here's what I mean. Sometimes let's talk about being angry. It's easy to go, I'm not angry. I just drive 95 miles an hour and dig my fingernails into my car, right? I'm not angry. Sometimes, especially men, we tend to shy away from our emotions. I love to come at things more problem-based. That's why we do this show. People might look on there and say, dude, I got nothing to learn from somebody with bipolar disorder. And we get to the end and they're like, oh gosh, I need to take control of fill in the blank. So similarly, if I'm doing a series on emotions, I might do a series on how to be a better dad. Because a part of being a better dad means pausing before I speak and feeling my body as it gets angry and then asking myself, surely it's not from a 4-year-old. Where is this anger coming from? Oh, it's lack of control. It's fear. It's that I'm terrified. It is whatever, right?
Okay.
How to be less anxious. What's a biblical discussion of what depression looks like? And I'm a firm believer with all my heart that the science of mental health and the neurology and all the neuroscience, all of that lines up. I mean, you're talking about ancient wisdom. It all lines up. It's like the joke with us. It's like the new old wisdom. It all lays on top of itself, right? So there's nothing to be afraid of. In fact, it's exciting for me. I like watching it when it lines up that way. So I'm going to start with this is just me. You start however you want. I mean, if you want to do a whole series on feelings, Chip Dodd's got a book out on feelings that's a good resource just to walk people with the I think he's got 7 core feelings. Some have 15 core feelings, some have 5, whatever. You can do that. I just know in my life, I tend to go, I'm not emotional, so I don't need this lesson. It's not for me. I'll just play on my phone. But if you say, hey, how to be a better husband, I'll listen to you. I'll give you 10 minutes on that and see if you can convince me. Or how to get a good night's sleep. You know, you talk about the fruits of the Spirit. Is there anything more peaceful than a guy falling asleep on a boat when everybody else is thinking they're going to drown? Like there's just a level of peace there. Like we don't even know what that feels like, man. So that's where I would look at it and then reverse engineer it. Does that answer your call? I feel like I'm just rambling at you now.
No, it does. It helps very much. So obviously in that opening, you got to hook. You got to give them the reason that they say, hey, I need to stay dialed in and listen to what he has to say and what he's sharing. So it's extremely helpful the way you backed into that.
The other thing is after people feel those feelings, I want them to demand evidence from them. Is this true or is this not true? And if I can get somebody to demand evidence instead of acting on that feeling, the whole world changes. The whole world changes. If somebody cuts me off And instead of flipping them off, grabbing my gun, tailgating them, somebody cuts me off, and I can pause and say, "What am I so mad about?" And I go, "Oh, I lack control here. I fill in the blank. Then I can calm down and slow down, man. Because tailgating them is not going to do anything but put me at greater risk than what they just, right? So can I just have a gap there? And then I want to teach people, man, I don't know what's happened to you in the past. Everybody I know's got garbage, some worse than others. But we all have to wake up today and say, what are we going to do today? Right? And that's getting up the next day after the garden and saying, I don't want to do this. And then saying, but I'll go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that guy didn't want to stop. And with the Samaritan didn't want to stop and wherever he was going and pay for that dude's bills. But here I am. And now I get to choose what I do next. Right? Yeah. And that to me becomes the message. You got to feel your feelings and then demand evidence. And then you got to go do whatever that looks like for you. And if I can help people walk through that, then the emotion stuff tends to work themselves out, man.
Okay, excellent. That's extremely helpful to think that through, right? So I love how you said that it helped them to feel the feeling, and then demand evidence of that feeling. What's true? What's real? What's really true in this situation?
Our feelings lie to us a lot. Our feelings are just our body's way of trying to communicate with us, right? And our body, if it can communicate that we're going to die, it will get us out of a situation. It will help us fight a situation or help us free, and it will help us hide in a situation, but it keeps us alive, and that's our body's job. Our body's job is not to help us have great marriages or to have good jobs long-term or to make good investment decisions. Body's job is to keep you alive. And man, sometimes those feelings, they lie to us. They over-sensationalize, they over-dramatize, they whatever, because the body's trying to get a reaction out of you. Can I just feel that feeling and go, whew, this is crappy. I'm in a season of mourning that hurts. And still I got to go eat right. Man, she really hurt me just now. But I'm still going to empty the dishwasher because that's what I said I would do. Man, if we can get people to do that in our churches, in our schools, in our communities, we're talking about a different planet, right?
Yeah, I think over the years, the church has not intentionally meant to be this way, but I think we've probably simplified or not really answered the questions that people are asking. And so because we don't know what to say, we just say simple platitudes like, well, you just need to pray about it. Not the discipline of prayer is not integral in the spiritual growth and the victory that people have in this. But they're dealing with real feelings and really trying to live, Monday through Friday and do it well. Like ultimately, life is complicated and they're just trying to get it right. Yeah. And so I feel like they have questions, and I'm just not certain that we've really taken the time as the church to answer them in a healthy way that roots them back into the scriptures. I think we've just been afraid. I think the church is afraid to address things that might get a little messy, to be honest with you.
I think the church as a whole has absolutely embarrassingly, dismally met the needs of the questions people in their churches are asking. I think you're exactly right. And it takes a group of brave pastors like yourself to lean in and say, what are y'all hurting with? We'll start there.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you, you get a group of people. I think the same thing with our school system, man. I think the same thing with politics. People are talking about, what are you talking about? I don't even know what that means. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't tell you the number of times I've heard a sermon and I just looked at my wife like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're even saying. Or I'm sitting in a continuing ed program like, do you hear the words coming out of your mouth? It doesn't even make sense. It's just a platitude on top. Yeah, on top of a platitude, on top of a platitude. It's time that all of us get very intentional about the real questions people are asking. And
because those are real people in the scriptures. I mean, Jesus is real, and the Gerasene demoniac was a real person, and Nicodemus was a real person, and Zacchaeus was a real person, and David and Goliath, and Peter and Paul. All these, they're real people. This is not like Aesop's fables or whatever. And so there are human emotions that are played out, as you've pointed out already, that are played out on the pages of the scriptures in front of us. And so I mean, even Jesus described, as he went from town to town, he described the people as harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. I mean, that was how he first observed people, when he walked into town. And then he went to the business of teaching, ministering, and bringing healing. So he was not just dropping, making mic drop moments with his theology. He was applying that in real life and helping people right where they were at. And that's what we're trying to do, and to create some conversation with people.
Also, he got people water.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or he talked to women when women weren't supposed to be talked to. He went into situations that people said, you shouldn't be there. And he's like, no, this is where I'm at. Right. And so there's an action to it. There's a disruptive, spirit. I'm going to be about loving people. And that means I'm going to get in the mess. And I'm going to get between somebody trying to hurt you. I'm going to sit down on the ground and draw on the dirt. That's how close to this thing I'm going to get. And yeah, man, if we get go ahead.
I was going to say, we're to minister. Yeah, we're to minister that grace and love of Jesus, and it just can't be slung at from a distance. I mean, you have to step into those lanes.
Yeah.
Not take it on. I can't take on everybody's problems. I did that as a young pastor, thinking I was supposed to fix everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you get fried and cooked and burned out. That's exactly right. But
and I took it all home, and so. But you still got to be able to step into those lanes and meet people where they're at.
That's exactly right. And I think a humility of a pastor to say, tonight or this morning I brought in for 20 minutes of the 40 minutes a first responder who's running the street right now. Here's what our neighborhoods look like. Here's the fear this person feels. And then tying that back. We learn through story. Jesus taught through parables. We learn through narrative. I won't get down that road. That's more of a controversial road. But we learn through story. We learn through experience. Here is a teacher. Here's what her world has been the last 24 months. So when you talk about anxiety, this is what this feels like. When it talks about carrying burdens, here's what this actually feels like. And the more we can make this stuff real, the more we can make these lessons not just so these things that you sew on a pillow, but a way we treat each other, a way we lean into discomfort, a way that we sit with people on the margins of our society. Dude, you're talking everything. Everything changes. Everything changes. And people just start talking way, 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 way less and loving and doing way, way, way more. So thank you so much for calling. I hope that helps, man. There's a reason nobody asked me to preach.